Does drinking affect the heart health of people who live in dry counties where alcohol is prohibited differently than those who live in wet counties? Texas recently became a perfect case study for this, and joining us to discuss the results is WSJ health reporter Ron Winslow. Ron, I have to say I was a little surprised to see that there are so many dry counties still in the U.S.
There are, and I guess especially in the South, there are several that are probably related to religious beliefs and that sort of thing.
They're shrinking, though, you say.
They're
right?
shrinking, yeah. For this study, which was done between 2005 and 2010, there were 29 dry counties in Texas, all a legacy of the Prohibition era back from the 20s and 30s.
Sure.
And now today there are only 7, so a lot of them have switched just in the last few years.
Even over the course of the study. So tell us about the study, who did it, and how was it conducted?
So this was done by researchers at the University of California, San Francisco, and they used some databases of hospitalized patients in Texas, which was a really large database, and then they got the map of dry and wet counties in Texas. Most of the counties there are actually mixed. I mean, there's towns, they may sell beer and not wine, or they may sell in restaurants but not in liquor stores. So they eliminated all of the partially wet or partially dry ones and just compared the people who lived for a long time, generally, in the wet versus dry counties to see what heart-related illnesses they were hospitalized with and whether there were differences.
And what did they find? They did find differences, didn't they?
They did find differences. One, they found a pretty significant reduction in heart attacks in people, hospitalization for heart attacks in people who lived in wet counties. And that's pretty consistent with quite a lot of research that says alcohol consumption may be protective against heart attacks. It has a good effect on cholesterol, maybe an anti-clotting or anticoagulant effect.
Right.
Those studies are not real definitive either, but anyway, it's sort of consistent with that. And then they found that these residents had a higher risk of atrial fibrillation.
The residents in the wet counties?
In the wet counties, okay. Right. The dry counties were appeared to be potentially protected against this heart rhythm disorder, which has got a big risk of stroke.
Interesting. So what does this tell researchers, though? Because this sort of gives us a mixed picture on what alcohol or the lack of it will do to your heart.
Well, I think almost everybody was sort of been encouraged lately with the research that suggests, a beneficial effect from at least moderate alcohol consumption. So this study kind of reinforces the idea that it's not necessarily one size fits all.
Right, and we know that excessive drinking is bad. That's pretty clear. The science is clear on that.
There's no study, as one of the researchers said to me, there is no data that says excessive drinking is good for anything.
No, it's never going to show up.
Right.
But the studies on moderate drinking have been a little harder to document because people don't tend to report their drinking accurately, correct?
Right. There hasn't been any significant randomized trials that could sort of help eliminate a lot of confounding factors. And yeah, one of the big concerns is, well, just how accurately do people report this, and then how does that affect the actual conclusion? Do
doctors seem to say, though, there is a big individual factor here? Everybody's relationship and response to alcohol is slightly different?
I think as more and more people get their genome sequenced, which is certainly going to be happening over the next few years, I think a big expectation is that there probably will be some genetic signature or some connection that will help people determine, based on their genetics, whether they're at risk or may benefit from this.
Well, I'm certainly glad to hear that my, few glasses of wine a week are just fine, according to this study.
I think you're probably safe on that.
I think I'm safe on that one. Ron Winslow, thank you so much for that.